I need to read.
All right.
So I would like to say hello and welcome to the director of the movie SARMAKO, Tale of the North, and director is Marco Papadopoulos.
Right.
Almost.
Well, yeah, very close. No, that was correct.
Okay. Yeah, it's quite long and it is not easy to pronounce exactly everything. But anyhow, I must say that we are very happy that we had possibility to screen your movie in our festival. We screened it actually yesterday, but since we didn't reach this meeting, it is interesting even today to make this kind of conversation, because the people who are watching online movies, since the festival is going now online, depending of all the situation around us. I think it's very interesting to have you as a guest to tell a few words about your movie, which is not so common and usual and easy. And so tell me a little bit, is it your first movie?
Yeah, that's my first feature film. So I'm basically I basically work in commercials and in music videos, and also made a few short films, especially in Greece during my study times there. But this was my first feature film, yeah.
And you studied directing in some university?
Well, I'm based in Germany, and I studied here in Bochum at the university, which was a film science and media science university. So on a theoretical level, but also with some screenwriting and directing in it. And then I went to Greece, to Thessaloniki, to the film school. And there I focused on directing and writing, also a bit of producing. Then I came back to Germany again for my master's degree, and in the meantime, I produced the feature film in Greece. Yeah. So.
And you are now in Greece or in Germany?
No, right now I'm in Germany. So I live here, I work here. I'm still in Germany. Yeah.
You're still in Germany. Okay, but you took one very interesting history, which is not so well known, I can say, at least from the people who are not from Greece. Probably something, I don't know how wait a second. Is something disappear right now?
Well, no, I can see you clearly, basically.
You can see me, but yeah. I cannot see you. Something wrong with now.
Yeah, now I can hear you. Yeah, you were mute, and I tried to tell you, but you didn't hear me.
Okay, well, once again, you took a very interesting subject to your movie. Is it something that you had within yourself? It's very teeny history of Greece, I think, just a few years after First World War and things like that. But anyhow, sorry, this technician is crazy. Just like to put it away and just, well, it disappeared. Again, it's very crazy. Now.
Did you hear me? Oh, man.
Hello.
Hello?
Yes.
Okay, great.
I hope that it will not move any longer.
Yeah. You made me the host somehow and changed the roles, and that's why you got thrown out. Yeah. Okay.
Isn't it like that? Okay, everything has happened. I'm not a master of technician. I'm just trying to pass through somehow. Okay, the story that you're taking in your movie is very unknown, I could say, and very specific. How did you find this subject for your movie? At least first one.
Yeah, I mean, there are a few subjects or a few themes within the movie. There are two historical decades, which I found out, of course, because of research and because it's, well, not very well known to the non-Greek people, I would say, but also to the Greek people, which is the Civil War. So this is a very important and serious and also well-known topic, at least in Greece, but outside of Greece and in Europe especially, people are not aware that a war continued after the Second World War. So the Second World War was for most people the end in Europe of the war. But afterwards, Greek basically continued to have a war between themselves or among themselves. And this was a very interesting thing because most Greek people, most Greek films somehow refused to talk about the Greek Civil War. And there was one film that was called Rebetiko, which is about the music style I try to represent. So about Rebetiko music, which was also, basically my favorite music style, and also a style I was very interested in because it hasn't been represented adequately by other directors. Just one time in this one movie called Rebetiko by Kostas Ferris, and there was also a series. But in both cinematic adaptations, the Civil War was missed out somehow. It wasn't there because they tried to avoid it, or they rejected it, or they didn't want to show it. So I thought, okay, what would be a good way to show the Civil War and also Rebetiko at the same time, to have a kind of combination and to combine these two Greek periods somehow, and to tell a narrative story through music, but also through the unknown history of Greece.
Okay, and I understand you told me that you worked in two parallel, like, historical plan. One is after Second World War, and one is before, as I understood, in 36 actually. Okay, and you said a civil war. Can you explain us? It is like people that who actually fight against whom? Can you explain? It is because I can imagine that it is very a gray zone of differentiation. Who is who and why is it's very, how can it, very hard to be explained. But briefly, at least for us who didn't know a lot, because the story is quite hard.
Definitely, the story is definitely hard and not very easy to understand if you do not exactly know these time periods. But the two parties fighting against each other are obviously right and left. So the left is represented by the partisans, so the resistance that with kind of guerrilla techniques fought in the woods and on the mountains, of course. So there was this kind of guerrilla mountain fight, this kind of Che Guevara left/communist feeling to it. And then we have the right and royal side. So those who are loyal to the king, loyal to their state, and basically on the right side of the national army. So we have soldiers against partisans. We have right democracy against communism. So this is somehow how this works out. Of course, the background history is extremely difficult because everything started basically during the Second World War, continued with the resistance against the German occupation until 1944, and afterwards the Greek party split somehow and the fight commenced between them. So this is the historical background. Yeah.
Okay, because for me it was, for example, you take this part from 36, but these guys were not exactly the soldiers. They were like, not jerks, but they were like gamblers. And suddenly gamblers are coming in a quite tough part of your history. My question is it your imagination, or it is something that you don't want to speak directly? Or it is because you are talking about like family, I mean, huge history living. I mean, people that are living and passing, you know, all the family was destroyed. And suddenly it was not some part, it is like somehow funny history of this gambler or bad people and things like that. Is it something you avoid that to be said, or it is just your perspective? How can you explain that?
Yeah, there's just this is the story of these two gamblers or gangsters or whatever you want to call this, is kind of Stan and Oliver characters, or these kind of slapstick characters that turn into bad guys somehow. But this is also based on true events, not exactly the development from being a gangster and turning into kind of soldiers or gendarmes, because this is what they're called. They're called gendarmes in this case, because in 1936 the dictator Metaxas took over. So as in Germany, for example, Hitler, or in Italy, Mussolini, and in Russia, Stalin, Metaxas took over. So another right part of Greek history took over. And of course, the left, so the workers, striked against this. And there were tobacco workers who striked, especially for their salary. And Metaxas had a kind of police troop, and these were the gendarmes, and they shot in Thessaloniki especially a lot of workers during the strike. And this is what this history is based on. So the historical context again is this strike and this upcoming dictatorship. And these two gangsters think, okay, let's just abuse this political situation and let's imitate the gendarmes and do whatever we want. Let's get money, let's rape the families, let's kill everyone because we have the right now, because a dictatorship is coming up. So this is the true story behind this.
Yeah, because I understand now, since your movie is starting with very light music, with some strip, I mean, just things like that, and you are involving us in some like easy narration, then it starts moving very harder and harder since till we come to the end, which is very actually upset, tough, and not so easy. Raping scenes, killing scenes, memory of this young guy, and things. And it sounds like never-ending story when the guerrillas coming like partisans. It's like, is it the end somewhere here? Well, I can understand that you have this satirical, grotesque way to deal with very quite tough history. How your movie is taken, since I didn't saw before this type of movie in stylization, in way that you make this production design, and this closed interior with in this restaurant and things like that. How your movie is taken in Greece?
So how was it taken by the audience?
Yeah.
Well, it was screened, the premiere was basically at the 61st Film Festival in Thessaloniki. Okay. And there should have been basically 2 screenings in cinema, but of course Corona destroyed this dream, and therefore there was just an online screening again. And yeah, a few reviews were written, and we had a few interviews, and we talked about the film, and a few articles were written in general, so it was accepted favorably, I would say. Of course, there were some people who said that this film is difficult to understand, that it might be boring, that it might be even different in terms of style and viewing experience, because it takes a bit of patience, I would say, to watch this film. But most of the people got the point and said that it was a nice mixture of history and music. They understood the references and the allusions, and yeah, reviewed it positively. And afterwards it went to Cyprus. Now it's fortunately in Sweden, in your festival. And afterwards it will also go to the Greek festival in Los Angeles, where it was accepted. And yeah, I think for the Greek, but also for the Balkan community, somehow it might be an interesting experience. And I'm still waiting, of course, for the cinemas here in Germany to open up, to get some screenings also here, because here's also, of course, a Greek community, but also a community that is interested in such films, because although it is a difficult film, I would say that there is something in it for everyone somehow. I mean, if you don't like the history, then at least listen to the music. If you don't like the music, then at least take a look at the history of the protagonist, for example. So this is maybe something that might connect the audiences in Europe at least, or worldwide, who knows.
I think that music did, you reach somehow documentary feeling of these songs, which are quite long. It goes slowly, but the history, and which is history, you know, the narration story about these songs are calm and easy, but they're going deeper and deeper and deeper, both in melody. So I like that. Yeah, and musicians are real people, musicians, and singer. Is she famous or something?
Well, yeah, in Thessaloniki, she's pretty famous. So she's
Okay.
known there at least as a
Yeah,
singer. She's
we
not.
just like reaching. Is it some famous singer or just local singer? Okay, so they have this feeling of reality somehow, but like epic reality.
Yeah.
So, okay, and yeah, the movies quite have its own levels, which are not easy to understand all of them, but actually, if you have Balkan, some kind of connection coming from former Yugoslavia or things like that, it's 49, it is the period when you are doing your movie, but we have Inforbiro, Tito, you know, not to Stalin, independence and things like that. So, because we start to think what was interesting in Yugoslavia in that time, because we were sharing somehow more or less the same history, at least till that part. And it was interesting to see, and it was not the same, but somehow it could be possible to relate to each other. Okay, are you doing something right now? Is it on the same?
Oh, well, right now, I mean, it's very difficult to make films right now or to produce films. I mean, it also depends a bit on the resonance of this film or how the film will go, because of course, always the goal is to make a next film somehow. So to produce a next feature film, of course, under better circumstances and with maybe a better budget and stuff like this. But yeah, I'm preparing again a screenplay, again, probably a Greek film and a historical film. And will be definitely a different style, but still I'm more in the I'm very fond of the genres of film noir and western. So these are the genres I like to focus on. So I will continue with this probably and try to create some Greek Balkan Western stories somehow. This would be the next project. I don't know when it will happen, but this is at least the big attempt for a feature film. Otherwise, I'm just doing some music videos right now. So this is the basic stuff.
Okay, we find actually one Western even in this movie. This guy who's searching, he's like a cowboy. I was like, what is this now? Because one can see really that you are playing with the both characters. Just briefly back to the film also. How did you find these characters?
Yeah, how did I find these characters? The characters were basically based on some short stories and on some tellings and historical accounts of persons and people who lived during this time. There is, of course, this old-fashioned kind of Zorro guy, the guy who is limping and who he has a knife and he has a gun and he's wearing his hat and he's extremely violent. He's a pimp. So this is, of course, based on some stereotypes of the Greek underground society of the 19th century, which also has to do with the musical style again. So this is interconnected. And then my protagonist, of course, had to be someone who you might sympathize with and who becomes this kind of Western hero. So somebody who has a kind of dark past and has to investigate his past, which we see in the flashback, and then takes revenge. And when you take revenge, of course, you go back to the very basic feelings of mankind. And this is what the Western somehow represents. And this is why I chose this kind of style. And then there are, of course, the women again, also some stereotypes. We have the classic whore, of course, and we also have the well-read intellectual woman who cooks and reads at the same time, for example. So there are a lot of facets going on in this in these characters somehow.
It was a very huge mix of a lot of stuff, and we were really surprised, at least yesterday when we saw the movie. A few of us were like, "What is this?" But it's very, and design also in one color, brown color, like sepia, like time before, like very, very. But when you go really deep in this scene of in 36, everything starts like a game and then finish with the horrible things. It's really one strength of the movie, should I say? So, but this time of Corona, I was thinking you had the premiere during this period. How do you feel about the movie? You told that you missed the premiere, real one, at the Thessaloniki Film Festival, which is one of the greatest film festival in Greece. Do you feel that you missed something, or still missing?
Yeah, definitely. I probably, to be honest, it was a pretty big disappointment, of course, because it would have been the first premiere on a big screen for my first feature film. So I think this is very important because first of all, it helps you to talk to people, to get contacts, and of course, to see an audience, which is the most important thing. Because now I've just had, until now, some online audiences, and I don't know how they look. I don't know how they feel. I don't know what they would say. Yeah. I know that they watched the film, but I don't know their reactions. And I would have loved to see reactions in the cinema, of course, and to see it on a big screen, and also to see if there are reactions, or if there are maybe people who dislike the film, because this is also important, to have people who do not like your film and argue with you why. And this is something I didn't have, basically. The only thing I had were some reviews, some articles, and people telling me, okay, nice movie. But we didn't go any deeper. This was the thing. So yeah, it was a disappointment somehow, and I missed out on the premiere, and I hope that I can repeat it at some point of time, because this would be, of course, the next step to bring it out in cinemas at least, or for normal screenings, which is, of course, why films are made somehow. Yeah.
Okay, and this new story, where are you planning to shoot that? Also in Greece?
Also in Greece, I would say. Yeah, probably also in Thessaloniki. Also a little bit about Thessaloniki, but again in the villages and in the natural landscapes. So this would be my thing, to shoot again there, and maybe to tell a simpler story, but a more a simpler story, but more on narrative terms, probably in this case. A more complex story in terms of narration, but a simpler story when it comes to character development and characters in general. So a different focus. And again, of course, Greek history in the background.
Which time?
In this case, the end of the 19th century, or during the turn of the century, from the 19th to the 20th. So the time of the after the revolution, the time of the Klefts and the bandits, who were basically the precursors of the partisans in the mountains. So again, a very different and difficult topic, but still it has to do with bandits, with partisans, with Western motives. This kind of stuff.
Okay, and a woman, would you plan to have a woman? Because here is a little bit stereotypes. Are you still working in the same pattern?
I will definitely have women again. So as actors as well as team members. So I don't know if I will use any stereotypes, probably, because this is how this historical stuff works most of the time. You use stereotypes and try to negate them, or you use them in another context. But I will definitely work again with women, but I don't know the role yet. And it's very interesting that most of the team members, for example, for this film, for SARMAKO, were women. So all of the team members were women, basically, 80%. So it's very interesting to have like a male story, if you want to call it like this, kind of male story told by a team of women somehow. So it was very important also for me to not only include male characters, but also to include, of course, women filmmakers or women team members.
Yeah. Okay. Is it something more that is important for you that we can probably speak about?
Well, what you mentioned was very interesting, that the history of Yugoslavia somehow had the same ideas as this history. There are the films by Angelopoulos, for example, the Greek film director, in Ulysses Gaze, for example, where he explicitly talks about this problem of Bosnia and Serbia and Yugoslavia and Greece in general. So it's a whole odyssey through the Balkan, which is very interesting because I think that I was pretty much inspired by these directors, and especially Angelopoulos, maybe also Miklos Janško, who were directors who, first of all, dealt with history, secondly, dealt with style, and thirdly, tried to have these long takes and to kind of contemplate about film and cinema itself. So this is what this film is also about. It takes its time. So it takes its time when it comes to the music and to the songs. It also takes its time when it comes to the landscapes and the narration. And it's also taking its time when it comes to violence, for example. And this is also something that Angelopoulos does, and which is somehow inherent in Balkan cinema history, I would say, because there must be a kind of pattern why directors do this, and that's why I also jumped on the bandwagon and did it myself somehow.
Well, you really did. You really moved things a little bit in your way, or like more modern, I could say, because we cannot forget, because since we are in Sweden, Erland Josemsson was also part of this Angelopoulos journey. It is very interesting to connect with this. Yeah, well, it's film narration, and you really did it in the best way, because this new way of shortcuts and easy history with fast movement, no thoughts, is something which is not moving probably the film in the right direction. I think this movie is more valuable when you have time to see, contemplate, reach some new ideas and feel with this. So thank you for this movie.
Thank you for watching it.
We hope to see you somehow in Stockholm, in Sweden. Have you been here before?
No, I've never been there. No, unfortunately not. But I would love to come to Sweden.
Yeah. How do you think about the Swedish cinematography?
How do I think about Swedish cinematography?
Bergman, the new
one. The first thing that comes to mind is, of course, Ingmar Bergman. Probably also Victor Stjåström, the silent filmmaker, which I really like. I mean, Ingmar Bergman is a very good example because he also takes his time and has a very stylized approach when it comes to the psyche and to the characters. There are also a lot of stereotypes, religious motives, so it's pretty close to what I like. But the other thing Sweden is famous for now, or that Scandinavia is famous for, is now the crime story somehow, like the crime cinema, crime series, which is very impressive, I have to say, when it comes to narrative skills. I mean, the Scandinavians are the new David Finchers of our generation somehow. So I really like the Scandinavian cinema, and there are a lot of big talents, of course. Also, the neighbors from Denmark, for example, like von Trier or Nicolas Winding Refn or people like this. I mean, it's incredible also to see their career, how they started. And they most of the time started with very simple things, and then they developed some of their own style. And this is, of course, the ambition every director somehow has, because it always depends on the conditions or the circumstances of production, budget, the time you have, what kind of equipment you have, what kind of people you work with. Making films is somehow a very hard business, difficult business, but still very redeeming somehow.
Great. It's really nice to speak with you. Thank you for being part of us. And we shall have probably one panel in a Saturday when we are finishing our festival. So you're welcome to participate there if you have time. It will be on a Saturday at about 4 o'clock.
So this time, right? Not time, right?
We will speak more like how is the situation about Balkan and things like that to make the movie. So it will be more like not film politics, but anyhow how you as a filmmaker survive in this jungle of possibilities or non-possibilities read the movie and come out with your history or story. So thank you once again, and hope to see you soon in Stockholm.
Hope to see you soon. Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Yeah, it is finished now. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really good. I was impressed with your movie yesterday, because when I selected it, was like, okay, we read it just slowly. People will not understand, but who cares?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a difficult movie. You're right. I mean,
and I was like, yesterday we were a few here, but what? We were like,
yeah.
And I said, okay, I would like to speak with this guy, because somehow introduce you here, and it would be great.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting that because I think that Greek audiences probably have a different access to these movies, and they see it and they say, okay, I get what he wants. But it was always interesting for me to see how other people react who don't know the history or who don't know the music, for example. So how does the sound? How do you hear the sound? How do you like the music? How do you get the history which is told? So as you said, it's probably very difficult and very different, but that's the purpose somehow.
I mean, you start with this easy, I think, is it tango? What is this about, you know? And then you start to sing, and we like this. We recognize this too, but we recognize even time, but we don't know exactly what's going on, you know? And that's what we're like, wait a second, shall we check what is 49, you know? What's happening? Oh, it was really great. We come out to the movie afterwards somehow, and then come Cowboy, which is passed through the area. It's like, okay, now it's John Wayne, and this hermetic place also was interesting. Like hermesy, nothing. I mean, it's like empty, like theater, you know. People are like in the middle of the play. For me, it was just one thing not so. Why this girl, which is like slave to this Zorro guy, she just went once. She just left him, and then she was back. I didn't reach that exactly. How she could come out. She could.
Well, basically, the one guy came in and killed the Zorro guy. Do you remember? I mean, one guy came in, killed him, and took the girl, and they left, and that's it. Or do you mean the scene where she walks out of the...
yeah, she's just leaving the place alone. And I was like, is she free now? Yeah, probably. She's...
that's what you mean. No, they're just leaving the place, but then she comes back anyways because she doesn't have anything to say in this case. So it's like she leaves, everyone is leaving because it's getting dawn, and she leaves and then comes back again.
Okay, because I was like, she left. It's free, it's quite free. And then she's back. Okay, I didn't reach that in history, that you're putting out the characters and then making their like main things, and then the not main characters are back. I was thinking, okay, she's free actually. She could do whatever she wants, but she don't like to do that. She's back, you know. She's like. Learn to be part of something. I'm like, okay, interesting. She have nowhere to run, you know, somehow.
Yeah, she doesn't have nowhere to go, basically. I mean, you have to imagine that these people, especially the relationship between pimp and whore, is somehow connected. There is a kind of bond somehow, and in this case, she's there with him. And when she goes home, for example, because she has a home or whatever, she just goes but comes back the next time. So it's not her. She doesn't have an opportunity to leave. They can't be separated.
Yeah. That's why I just in the beginning, is she free now? She just left because her guy is coming. No, she's back. Okay.
Yeah, she's back. Yeah, and then she's saved by her real husband. So her real husband has to come to save her. That's the only solution, basically, for her to save her out of this mess. So this is what happens. He comes in, shoots everyone, slits Tsolakis' throat, and takes his wife back and gets her out of this place. But we still don't know what her future will be like. We don't know if this is a good thing or not. So this was the kind of ambiguous approach to her saving.
Yes, and your approach with the Zora, he's like a bastard, like he's always, but at the end, he's actually very positive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he is. And he's
like,
also best friends with the owner, so it's basically
things are like it was very interesting done. Well, this guy who is very negative suddenly be actually positive, and the one who is innocent become very guilty somehow.
Mm-hmm.
So right. It was very interesting play during just the scenes. So Marco, thank you. It was really a pleasure to see your movie.
Yeah, thank you.
I can recommend it. We shall see how it will be, because for me it's also online perspective, the first one, also the first time that we are doing like this. So I must find myself in relation to public, which is online, because otherwise I have him in the theater, we are talking, they are acting, going home, but now they're at home.
Yeah.
And I don't know how is, I miss that relation exactly as you, and I will see how well we develop these things. Anyhow, it will be awarding Eve 24th. I hope so.
Yeah, hopefully.
Finally.
Usually, would you have invited the directors to Stockholm, or how does this work usually?
Not everyone, because we are very limited festival, but few which are important for us, which make festival interesting and things like that, we can always invite. If we get support, everything is support. This year we didn't have funds. It is, I think it's Corona time, which I really don't like, but that's why we are doing online anyhow. But idea, or since before, if you check in our balkanfilmfestival.com, you will see that we have guests. As I said, not everybody, we are not so huge, but few of them we are inviting just to make it pleasant to audience, to the movie that they're representing, and somehow making connection with the Swedish, get perspective in Swedish environment, landscapes and everything, just as idea for some future collaboration or something. So that's the idea of the festival.
Very interesting. Yeah, it was a pleasure to.
Balkan is not Sarajevo, that's my point.
Yeah, that's true.
Because the Swedish people are knowing only about Balkan, about Sarajevo Film Festival. I said, sorry guys, but Sarajevo is one in history, which is actually past. Balkan has something else to say.
Sure, definitely.
So that's why we are having this.
Great.
Okay. Thank you, Marco. Keep in contact. Actually, you will meet the girl Teresa Petra Terzi. She's the girl from Cyprus.
Oh yeah, I met her. We also had a talk, a little chat in December, and she took my film for her Cyprus and her Bridges Film Festival, and we had a nice conversation. Yeah, and probably it was also a little bit easier for her to understand some of the film, because she also knows the language, which is always a kind of barrier. So that was also a very interesting talk somehow, because it's funny to see the different perspectives on these films.
Sure. So with her, I have also, and there is a Cyprus and this Greek film festival in America. I said, okay, probably Petra is somewhere there, because I met her and speak with her and things. Okay, thank you so much. Keep in contact and keep on working.
Thank you. Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.